1. Agree with the situation. I reconcile with the situation. I know that everything is because of the situation. It is necessary to understand that everything cannot be corrected. Until today, I lived counting my mistakes. But counting my own mistakes did not help me in my efforts to fix things. Therefore, it is not necessary to only count the self-destruction and mistakes. There is no need to think about past misfortunes. There is no profit in hindsight. It's good to live a quiet life. There is no one who doesn't need him. He needs to believe that everything will be fine in time. It is important to understand that it is not about worrying too much about getting good things. There are many kinds of battles on this earth. All of them can be won if you know the type and fight according to the type. It is known that there are many commentators on human life, but it is boring and useless to reply to all commentators. It's good to be afraid of failure. And if push comes to shove, you need to believe something. It is the fact that the history of the great people in our world does not have a final fall. Death is the end of humanity. It is inevitable that no matter how hard a person has fallen, he will be resurrected until he is crucified alive. As there is no permanent good and no permanent bad, everything is transitory. The only way a person has fallen is to bury the dead. An undead person cannot be left in any situation, but it is good to adapt to the situation in time. The consistency is beneficial because it shortens the rise time and reduces the bitterness. When a person leaves the past and the future and starts thinking only about the present, he recovers from the fall and starts a new life. Complaining more and more will do me no good other than prolonging the departure time. Most people want to be the man. Being a human being has wax and gold. The wax is the common one that is born with us from the beginning, but the gold is something else. It is very important to be a desirable person, and he is the kind of person from whom many will benefit when he lives, and when he dies, they will lack something. It is necessary to agree on something until someone who doesn't want to be wanted is hanged. It is to be able to distinguish between the situation and the truth. Situations are always changing while truth is constant. A person who does not change with the situation and says to stick to the truth, his behavior varies and so does his usefulness. A person who insists on truth is a type of person who believes in logic and is stubborn. In the common saying, it means the kind of person who does not touch himself or others. These people who stand on the basis of truth and persist until the end, although they are mostly unwanted by many people because of their stubbornness, they are never seen to hurt people and seek benefits that are not theirs in the wrong way. However, it is common to see something of theirs being unfairly taken from them for various reasons. Therefore, their conflict is not with man but with their Creator. Because their view of the truth is strong, they believe that there is a force that stands up for the truth. The problem is that when they don't find a force that will argue for the truth and win it according to their expectations, they will be very angry with the Creator. He is not the only one who begins to believe that usurpers and those who follow injustice are right. Although they are forced to believe this because of the injustice they have suffered, it is not the truth. The truth is between understanding the direction of the situation and not understanding the energy of the situation. People who understand the direction of the situation on time are always the beneficiaries. As many of us assume, these people who follow the situation may not have the intention of harming anyone. However, people who do not understand the power of the situation will become victims of the following methods to protect their own interests or to save themselves. Because of this, people who are dependent on the truth find it difficult to believe the saying that a man reaps what he sows, because of their bitterness. This is because they did not reap what they sowed. They did not reap what they sowed, not because their words were wrong, but because they themselves did not sow according to the situation. If we look at a direct example, if a farmer sows in a spring without rain, he cannot reap what he sows. Understanding the power of circumstances is essential to reaping the seed. Many people simply do not realize that the power of circumstance can produce unbelievable results. Especially people who insist on the truth and don't try to understand the situation. In any case, people who follow the situation will be the beneficiaries and those who deny the truth will be the victims. Neither the truth nor the situation is new in this world. They were and are living. Instead, people who do not understand the strengths and abilities of both will pass without using their skills. Although the two seem to conflict and contradict people's understanding, They do not conflict or contradict each other. They live side by side whether they agree or disagree. People who understand the situation find the truth in the situation. But those who do not understand the situation stand up for her, thinking that the truth alone has the power. But the truth alone is of no use to them. Therefore, the word, disagree, is used for those who think that this truth alone has the right, and the word, heard, is used for people who do not see both of them separately and can see one in the other. There are people who live and reap what they did not sow because of the power of the situation. For example, it is common to see people who have graduated a lot and their life seems ungraduated, people who sow a lot but reap a little, and people who wait for a lot and get nothing. On the contrary, it is not new to see people who sow a little and gather a lot. A good example of both is to pick a farm produce. 1 hectare of land that existed before is still the same 1 hectare today. Without increasing the area of the land, the amount of produce harvested in the past and the amount of produce harvested today is not equal. This is the ability of the situation that has resulted in a changed amount of production on an unchanged land area. It is to provide the fertilizer needed for the land. One important thing to emphasize here is that the size of the land is the same today. It is a condition of increasing the quantity of the product. It is an inevitable fact that when the amount of fertilizer needed for the land is reduced, the production will decrease. It is known that when the necessary fertilizer is given to the land, the yield will increase. This is what is called finding the truth in a situation. To put it simply, truth represents the area of 1 hectare of land and condition represents the yield of 1 hectare. There are 2 brothers known in the great book, Jacob and Esau. Esau was older and Jacob was younger. However, the book says that a younger boy named Jacob committed adultery with his mother and took Esau's greatness away from him. In the end, a boy named Jacob gained greatness by taking advantage of the situation. Based on Jacob's situation, it is surprising that he followed his brother's hunger and achieved greatness with lentil stew. What this book wants to bring out here is just how powerful the power of circumstance is. The story goes like this: the father of the 2 twins was called Isaac. He was old and could not see. There was an older boy named Esau who used to feed his father by hunting wild animals. Jacob was a shepherd boy who did not go far from his mother. One day, when Esau was a child, his brother Jacob said, "Give me greatness and feed me from lentils." After convincing him, he said, "I will feed you stew." He easily took his greatness from him. Another time, Esau returned from hunting and did not feed his father. Esau reported that when their father was hungry, they took care of the situation when a boy named Jacob, according to the advice he got from Natu, slaughtered one of the lambs and prepared it for his father and fed it to his father. After receiving the initiation from his father, if Esau comes, there are no 2 initiations. He was told that his brother Jacob took the initiation of greatness first. However, the book says, the consecration to Jacob remained intact. Quote, according to this book, it is the force of circumstances that has done everything. All 4 made no mistakes. All 4 means father, mother, and both twins. First of all, every healthy person wants to be better for him. It is possible to get this superiority not only by philogot. Rather, it is by using an opportunity or a situation that results in an advantage. Circumstances overlapped, and the first time Esau and his father Isaac were hungry. The second condition is that Esau does not return from his usual hunting. The role of the people is low when we look at the situations that happened in between. The biggest role is played in reality. If we have what it means in reality, what is called truth is that it cannot be changed in any way and the situation is changeable. It is a fact that food is needed during times of hunger. It is a condition of providing food to a hungry person. It is not surprising that the younger one took advantage of the situation to get the title of greatness. Perhaps the mother of the 2 twins gave that advice to the younger one, not because she hated the older one, but rather because she was concerned about the hunger of her elder son. Even Jacob did that not with the intention of harming his brother but with the intention of benefiting himself and feeding his father. The 4 were not wrong, it was the situation that made them all. All actions are done according to their own circumstances, there is no victim in between. Maybe if there is someone who lost his advantage in the middle of the process, he lost his advantage because he was not in the situation quickly. This story is believed to be a good illustration of the unity and separation of reality and reality. It explains that there is no need to stand still in any activity. If circumstances can change a person who was created to be great and become a small person, how can it not change other things more than this? Anyone who wants to maintain his superiority has to adapt to the situation. Chapter 1. Situation to use. No one can change a situation but use it. However, sometimes situations can be created. People who are prepared to take advantage of a situation are always winners. It is difficult to use a condition against a condition except by agreeing to a condition. Therefore, whoever wants to take advantage of the situation, the first step is not to get into a conflict with the situation, but to quickly adapt to the situation. Anyone who can do this can easily benefit from it. Being able to change a situation means being able to use it to your advantage. However, no one can take away a situation and replace it with something else. Some conditions are mandatory. Especially when circumstances are combined with reality, the only choice is to make the most of it. A situation in truth means a kind of truth that has an inherent content that cannot be modified. Truth is always fixed and situation changes with actual events. Trying to change such a situation is like shooting yourself back in the head. Because situation changes in its own time and not according to people's needs. Many examples of such situations can be cited. Before moving on to the examples, it is important to understand that there are people who benefit from circumstances and there are also those who are harmed by circumstances. For example, due to various reasons, changing the policy of the office, changing the government system, and changing the government itself, in these situations there will be a party that will benefit and also a party that will be harmed. However, trying to change the state beyond using the state is risky. I would like to share a good example from what I have heard. In the 1960s, there was a controversial incident that happened in the family of a band farmer due to the change in the government system in Ethiopia. It was a time when fixed and movable property was inherited from the section of society known as the ruling class or the wealthy and given to the people and the government. As a result, Kand was the second son of a farmer who came to youngest from his home age when he found out that many cattle and horse were taken away from his family. It is said that the young son confirmed that he would not be able to save his father's property when he saw the condition of the soldiers, then he joined them and confiscated his father's cattle and saved many domestic animals for himself. However, the youth met with condemnation from sections of the community who did not understand the power of the situation. However, since no one can change such a situation, the only option is to use it. Knowing about the truth itself is considered easy. Because the time is when the power of the situation is highlighted and seen, no one dares to think about the truth. It is not to stay stuck in one place with the truth, but to quickly adapt to the situation. It is not possible to change unless you use a condition. That's probably why people who stick to the truth only step where they are, and people who agree with the situation look up and look down on them. Anyone who understands the power of a situation uses it by agreeing with it. Those who don't understand that will struggle to change it. No one has been able to change the situation, either at the individual level or at the government level. It is important to remember that this does not mean that the situation cannot be created. Challenging the status quo alone will not achieve the desired results. It is not to oppose the situation but to create the situation that will bring the desired benefit. If I ask whether everyone creates situations, the answer is no. Only a few people who understand status coding can create status. Understanding the status code alone does not make you a winner. It is not about understanding and agreeing with the time, but after the knowledge has passed, regretting saying, "Oh, I should have done it like that," is also not possible to use the situation unless it is for future learning. Condition cannot be used when such conditions are not met. You can object at any time without having to choose any time to object. However, resistance does not have its own benefits. Basically, opposing anything, not just the situation, alone does anyone any good. When we have the desire to oppose something that is uncomfortable, it is necessary to calculate the benefits and harms of opposing it. If there is no benefit to be gained by our opposition, why oppose us? Or if we are against it and we are hurt and someone else takes advantage of it, what is the meaning? Because every person living on this earth, his activities are based on self-interest. A benevolent person who benefits a person not only benefits others, but also indirectly benefits himself. Maybe he's not using material things to add to himself. Yet just by doing that good deed, he can find an inner satisfaction that is priceless. If there is no benefit from resisting a situation, before resisting, it is important to know the benefits that we will get if our resistance is successful and we can change the situation. This is about quantity and quality. Because it is important to compare the superiority that existed before we rose to oppose the situation that existed before with the superiority that we will get after the opposition. If not, there is no point in rushing to challenge the situation and the stakeholders who created the situation out of chaos and emotion. Many people ignore the situation and focus on the people who created the situation. This means that when you are benefited or harmed by the situation, they raise their hands to praise or condemn the creators of the situation. Basically, this is a big mistake. This is because people have protected the situation and revealed themselves first because of the situation, but the owner of the situation is the situation itself. There is nothing on earth that ends the way it started, whether it is a good thing or a bad event. Beginners are the reason. A situation itself will change itself at some point or it will destroy itself. This situation can be linked to natural energy. What do you mean? Nature has taken its current shape. It is not controlled by anyone in its own time, but human beings have contributed their share in nature, if not by spoiling it, not by beautifying it. The beauty of nature was even more than this when people did not interfere and spoil the life. Science says that many things have changed in the process of nature and created its own beauty and form. If people did not participate in both, life itself would have changed over time because the situation forces it. When a person disagrees with a situation, it seems that the feeling that follows. He considers himself a cursed man, a man who reaps not what he sowed but what he did not sow. He begins to understand that the greatest thing for a human being is not just eating and drinking or choosing to wear clothes. In retrospect, he may feel guilty, because he is not ready to agree with the situation. He regrets remembering the things he lost due to the situation. He tries to remember that he has committed some wrongdoing somewhere. Every day he is eager to hear and see new things. When he finds no wrongdoing to blame on himself, he gets confused with himself saying, "Why am I destined to reap what I did not sow?" He still doesn't get the answer because the answer is in the hands of the situation. Because of this, it is often easier to compare the past with the present. Thinking of the good opportunities he had, he goes back in his thoughts and savors his old life in his imagination. He thinks that he will be happy to say goodbye at that time. He curses the root cause of the event. But nothing can change. The only option is to adapt to the current situation or time. People who happen to be in the midst of situations are never lost. However, they are the cause, not the cause. When I say the case, it means what happened through the situation, good or bad. But before giving due consideration to the situation, people tend to praise or condemn the people who caused it. Perhaps those people who are mentioned as the reason for the issue are people who quickly understood the secret of the situation. Being able to quickly understand the power of a situation and be able to take advantage of it can also be blamed. Those people who are in the middle of the situation may have hurt the other person when they are trying to benefit themselves. This body that can be hurt is not adapted quickly to the situation. Chapter 2. Who has created hell? Every person suffers because of the debt of his own thoughts, which means that in the past, the Creator adjusted all the creations according to his needs when he created them. It was created with the things that people also need. But because the man said that he thought for himself, he got into the tension that he is in now. For example, wild animals do not work hard to accumulate personal wealth, build a house, buy a car, or gain fame. But man is created like any other animal, but because of the fact that he can think for himself of his own free will, he lives in pain. Some of the pains are the pain of thinking and the other is the pain of thinking what will happen tomorrow. No other animal except humans worries about what will happen tomorrow. But the human being is a creature who worries about what he eats and drinks today and what will happen to him when he dies tomorrow. What inspired me to think about what happens when I die without having the chance to think about how to create a person? Because they are both relatives, birth and death are truths at the edge of each other. When a person was born, he did not think about how he should be born, where he should be born, from whom he should be born. He had no right to think and found himself on earth. So why should he worry about where he goes after he dies? It is reasonable to think so. If a person does not know where he was before he was born, he cannot know where he will go after he dies. Knowing cannot forgive. Just because he has the right to guess where he can go after his death, he can assume that he will return to where he was before he was born. This means that man knows that he was not on this earth before he was born. Based on this situation, he can assume that he will return to his absence. This means that if a person was in hell before he was created, he will return there when he dies. A person was in heaven before he was born, and when he dies he will return to it. There is no evidence that both things were created by humans in their own time, but were created together when the first man was created. Before the human being was born, he didn't think about anything, he didn't eat, he didn't drink, he didn't work at home, he didn't live in a house, he didn't drive a car, he didn't study, he didn't teach, he didn't follow any religion. He was generally not worried about anything. But it was in itself. He did not become a body, but he was. Although creation and birth seem similar, they are not the same. Simply, creation represents thought, and birth refers to materialization. But the fact that he existed by himself means that he was with the Creator at the level of thought before he was born. The Creator is revealed in his work, not seen in person. No one has seen the Creator in person. He is the same in the past as well as today. It hasn't changed, it won't change. But man has changed a lot since his creation after the creation of all creatures. For example, the diet, clothing, lifestyle has changed from time to time and has reached today. Man is created selfish and is not satisfied with what he is given. He wants to take it all in. Another thing is that even things that cannot be chosen by nature, such as hair type, height, skin color, even gender, are envied. Therefore, it has gone to improve many things. Because of this, he was forced to live the miserable life that he is now. Even then, before he was born, man was not motivated by selfishness and greed, but by his spirit. Because both science and natural studies prove that all visible things are created from invisible things. It was the Creator's idea before man had flesh and breath. For example, before father and mother had a child, there was a need for a child in their thoughts. When I gave birth to them, they found it to be part of their thoughts. Therefore, when a person dies, he returns to his previous idealism and does not go anywhere. There are many reasons to say this. For example, when a person dies, the flesh and the soul are not buried together. The meat goes to the grave after it is given the name of a dead body. But no one sees where the soul goes. What is not seen is a thought. Therefore, the soul has no other address to go to than to return to its original state of idealism. This means that both the soul and the flesh will return to where they were at the time of rebirth. This address is not the place told to us by the religious teachers as hell or heaven or paradise. They return from being seen to not being seen. If it is possible to believe that a person is invisible before birth, it is easy to believe that he will return there after death. Therefore, there is neither water nor fire waiting for a person after death. What was dust will return to the spirit of the dust, and there will never be any accuser or accuser. 10,000 years ago, people created a religion to fulfill their needs because of their circumstances, and through that, they started teaching people that there is a hell and a heaven waiting for them after they die. However, more than ever, when a person dies, it is equal. Democracy preached on earth will probably be implemented then. There is no death that can be divided into two, the approved and the unapproved. Before he died, he was called a corpse. When he dies, he is called a corpse. After he is buried, he is no longer called a corpse. According to the religion of Christianity, back then, the Creator created the earth and the sky, then created all creatures, and finally created man. And man created hell and paradise according to his religion. Interestingly, there is an idea that people created the two things out of necessity. As the Great Book says, the Creator finished everything on the sixth day after creating man and rested on the seventh day. The Great Book does not say that the Creator did other things. So, it is a clear indication that the religious people have added hell and heaven, which the Creator did not include in those 6 days. Religious teachers, seeing the work of man, created a fireplace called hell, where the fire will not be extinguished, in their imagination, and then they started teaching their followers. However, it is not explained in the 6 days of human beings about the actual existence of hell and heaven or paradise. Therefore, it can be concluded that the things called heaven and hell are not the idea of the Creator, but are the result of creation of human beings or religious people. They should not be blamed for doing this either because the situation forced them. Using this kind of strategy to control people is also believed to exist in modern education. It is not known who started before whom. For example, in management approach, you can see what are called stick approach and carrot approach. Stick apps mean doing what you want by scaring people, while carrot apps mean doing what you want by tempting people. So what is the connection between the two in this content? It is human nature to seek a reason to accept or obey something, and it should be a convincing reason. Therefore, believing that it is good to place it high where people cannot reach it, after the reason is prepared, hell and heaven, which cannot be reached by research, were prepared by religious teachers and made familiar to human children through imagination. As it is said, if both of them live, they may be on this earth. Because a person can enjoy both good things and bad things only as long as he is on this earth. I don't have the ability to distinguish between good and bad after a person's death. Therefore, it is not possible to confirm whether it is an idea created by him because he does not have the ability to determine whether there is hell or heaven, and because he does not have the ability to inform people who have not died, it is not possible to confirm the validity of his idea. Earlier, we hypothesized that when a person dies, he will return to where he was before he was born. Before man was born, he had no knowledge of whether anything was good or bad. Even after his death, it is appropriate to raise the question of whether religious teachers can teach about those things based on the fact that there is no evidence to support and analyze the existence or non-existence of heaven or hell. It can be assumed that the religious teachers, seeing the rebellion of the people, used Zed to control them by seducing them in hell and heaven or in the kingdom of heaven and threatening them with hell. It means like carrot and stick. If they use hell as a threat, they use heaven as an incentive. Although human beings are rebellious by nature, they are cowards and easily subject to threats. In addition, man is greedy and selfish by nature, so he easily succumbs to incentives or succumbs to them. Basically, a person is happy or unhappy only as long as his body and soul are together. After the death of a person, his flesh and soul are different. So how can the two think about hell and heaven separately? To confirm this, one should try to remember the situation before birth. If anyone can know him, he can believe what he hears about heaven and hell. In addition, a person who cannot remember and know that can reach his own understanding about the existence and non-existence of heaven and hell. It is also said that there is no heaven or hell. It is necessary to be careful not to take it as saying that there is no heaven or hell, that religion is not important. But there is one thing that should be kept in mind. It is worth understanding that there is no heaven or hell. It does not mean that there is no creator. Anyone who doubts the existence of a creator can prove it in many ways. Until today, it is enough to see the things that were designed and made only by the creator and not tried and failed by human beings. Another important thing that humans have done is copied from nature. Therefore, there is a creator who is eternal and cannot be replaced by anyone. It is enough to know that there are only 3 fixed truths on this earth. They are creator, birth and death. Other truths may exist depending on their nature. However, they are context dependent and not self-sustaining or discriminating. It is an event with powerful energy that is the decisive factor for winning or losing. In our country, Ethiopia, it is heard over and over again that the rope of truth will continue, not break. However, there is no unbreakable truth if it is not supported by circumstances. The rope of truth is unbreakable only when the owner of the truth can quickly come to terms with the situation. The signs of truth are only when they understand the power of the situation and are able to go along with the situation and have patience to wait for another important situation to come. This means you can win or lose at any time. Those 3, creator, birth and death, always win but never lose. Chapter 3. Agree on the situation. It is said in many ways that it is best for mankind to forgive or to receive forgiveness. It is true that there is nothing better than self-forgiveness. People often hold grudges against themselves for various reasons. They think that it is their own fault due to the failure of a few reasons, they feel remorse when others blame and accuse them, and finally they start to blame themselves by considering themselves as a destructive person. But doing so will do them no good. They benefit from accepting the situation, and accepting the situation includes self-forgiveness. When people begin to forgive themselves, they begin to experience joy within themselves. The source of their happiness is not only that they have forgiven themselves, but also that they have come to terms with the situation. Accepting forgiveness is believed to be an equally important step. Accepting forgiveness and giving forgiveness seem to have the same effect, but the truth is different. Forgiveness is given to two parties. First, giving and receiving forgiveness is beneficial to oneself and from oneself. The second is accepting forgiveness from another person and giving forgiveness to another person. It is important to realize that the basis of both operations is adaptation to the situation. Most of the time, the reason people are not quick to give and receive forgiveness is because they think the truth is with them. And as we have seen in the previous chapters, it has been proven that truth cannot stand on its own. But many people see the truth and the situation separately and think that the truth is not important if it is with them. But the truth is not like that. Except for the three truths that can stand alone, it is appropriate to understand that all truths can produce good or bad results in accordance with the situation. People like to understate the status quo and overstate the truth. However, the ability to know the truth can be determined by adapting to the situation. Many trust only the truth and are disappointed when they are not told what they expected. Then you may be confused. They are right and not wrong. However, there is something they have forgotten, which is that truth and circumstances are inseparable. What hurts people the most is not being able to cope with the problems and suffering they face, but not being able to quickly adapt to the situations they face. If it is confirmed that it is impossible to correct and fix the problems that are encountered, the solution is to accept and agree. Such cases can only be accepted, but they will be placed in the category that we cannot change. It is important to understand that there are events that require time due to circumstances and events that cannot be changed due to nature. For example, the loss of a close relative is a natural issue that cannot be corrected. Bankruptcy and being poor in business is something that can be recovered with time and circumstances or even more. These things are not the same. Because the first is a standalone truth and the second example is an event that combines truth and circumstances. There are two basic points that allow us to say that the second example is a mix of truth and circumstance. Bankruptcy and poverty is a temporary reality. But when we see that it is not an unchanging fixed truth, it explains that it is not the only truth, but the truth combined with the situation. The solution for both is to agree. Disagreement should not be thought of as creative anger, but as a changeable event. I think that is the person who handled the case. Because accepting and agreeing is useful for two things. First, it is useful for comfort. Acquiescing to a situation, thinking that something is as it should be, increases regret and reduces resentment. There are many people who think about the crisis of living. However, no one can return to a peaceful life until they can forgive themselves. Because you don't like read and know that it is good to forgive and accept forgiveness, but we may not have learned or heard how it is better to forgive ourselves. People may remain unforgiving to themselves, but in those moments, it is inevitable that they will remain in trouble. The solution is to first understand that self-forgiveness is extremely important. It is not only the problem that hurts people, but the way the problem is handled. It is possible to complicate or simplify the situation. The best thing is to simplify it, but after it is complicated, nothing will be added. If it is necessary to complicate the easy thing, it is possible to lighten the difficult thing. Nothing is impossible, everything is made possible. It is in the hands of people to be mad or take things lightly. The main and important thing is to look at the situation with knowledge. Especially people don't need to waste their time on things they can't fix. Even on things that can be fixed, if the speed is not taken to take successive steps, there will be no change or improvement that comes only by thinking more about the situation. As long as man continues to exist on earth, it is inevitable that he will experience various events. Accepting a situation as it is wisdom. Once upon a time, the king of a country was worried about the situation and facts, and then he summoned a wise man and asked him for advice. The wise man shocked the king by telling him to go. The wise man replied, "O king, don't be angry, just give me 1 week, I will prepare my advice as a gift and bring it." As he requested, I gave him a coin. At the end of the week, he wrapped a hand ring for the king and brought it to the king. A wise man said to him, "O king, when you are concerned about the situation, look at the inscription on this ring. This is to show that no matter how difficult things may seem, they will pass away with circumstances and be replaced by other circumstances." People worry a lot about what they are going through. Some seem to be worried about borrowing time if they are not sure whether it has reached the future or not. This means that living a life of bankruptcy is simply considered as buying for 10 and selling for 8. Therefore, it is important to do everything in moderation. Circumstances are what make people winners or losers, not their hard work or anxiety. People worry too much about everything because they don't realize that everything is temporary and transitory. It is probably for that reason that he gave the king a ring with the inscription, "This shall pass." If it angers the king to directly say that you will wait your turn and die, it is fair to say that this will pass with simple Z. Consistency is not limited to what is. It also means being prepared to come to terms with what is to come. Consistency is useful for many things. For example, consensus reduces wastage of ideas, consensus eliminates unnecessary confusion, consensus saves energy, consensus saves time and money. There is no benefit to be gained from disagreeing with a situation. The only thing that comes from not agreeing is to pay damages and unnecessary costs. Agreeing means agreeing with people's thoughts and actions, not doing anything else. In other words, it means cooperation by not joining in opposition. Resistance is a bad act that consumes the power of the opponent. The one who is harmed by holding power is the person holding power, not the person who is being power controlled. Sometimes agreeing is the opposite of accepting. Agreeing with a band's idea or band's action does not mean accepting it. Rather, it is about allowing people to travel the way they choose and avoiding the misunderstandings and waste of energy caused by opposition. A person cannot make everything he agrees to his own. For example, there are many people living together in the same house following different religions or husband and wife in our country, Ethiopia. People don't necessarily have to oppose others to walk the path they choose. No one can identify his own choice without objecting to something that is not his own. This means agree. Acceptance and consent are different. To accept is to decide to make an action or material thing one's own, and to agree is to leave an action or idea as it is without objection. Although I believe that the saying "sometimes silent is acceptance" is the same for legal people, it has a different meaning in social life. The examples we have seen earlier is when people of different religions get married and live together in a band, they are not made to accept each other's religion. Therefore, the idea of listening is a problem-solving step. Agreeing with one, agreeing with family, agreeing with office, agreeing with neighbor, agreeing with society and country. First of all, it is very important to agree with yours. Person who is not in agreement with himself will find it difficult to agree with others. A person who is always full of oppositional thoughts, even if he is faced with the opportunity to find complete things, it is inevitable that he will look for something that does not exist and prepare for opposition. Agreeing also saves you from being called an opponent. It is important to understand that being called an opponent is not a good name. Anyone can offer useful alternatives without being called an opponent. Chapter 4. The Truth Acceptance. Although the word accept is similar to agree, they are different. Acceptance is more than consent. A person agrees with an action or idea until he finds something of his own to accept. Acceptance is the act of making something your own. Agreeing means not disagreeing. However, I may or may not add acceptance. Accepting and dealing with things as they come requires great understanding. Often, people are hurt not only by the bad event that happens to them, but also by the way they handle that event. If it is confirmed that we will not get a chance to correct an event, the only option is to accept it. This is what happens when things become reality. In other words, when reality and circumstances are superimposed on the band read before, the situation changes but the truth is constant. People have no choice but to accept the truth. It is to accept the situation and wait for another changing situation to come. To change will help you recover faster. For example, although it is very sad to lose a loved one, it is one of the unchangeable truths. However, it's good to admit that they did. Being prepared to deal with any reality in moderation will make the post-event process easier. Sometimes raising inappropriate questions instead of accepting truths in moderation can cause unexpected harm. Acknowledging the incident sooner will help you recover faster from the injury. In any case, there is no point in resisting things and preparing for a backlash. It is possible to reduce the side effects by agreeing to keep the things that we want from coming to us otherwise. Instead of worrying about whether something terrible happens somewhere, it's better to let it stay where it is. In particular, people find it difficult to accept something they are not used to. Many useful things may not always be found in ordinary things. Acceptance is more than consent. In a different way, the solution to the events caused by nature is to accept it. Because it is difficult to correct things that happen due to testing, even if it is a man-made phenomenon, it can be difficult to get the same thing back. Therefore, by accepting what is found instead, it is possible to protect one from the negative things that may come next. The most influential and effective people in the world have gone through unbelievable situations when I study their background. However, it is because they accepted the truth and prepared to make a different story instead of challenging the situation that helped them rise again. Accepting truths is a lesson and paves the way for the next journey. Basically, I cannot choose to reject the truth. If it is said that there are 3 immutable truths, which of the 3 can we accept and which one can we leave behind? It is not possible to replace one with the other without accepting all 3. The creator of the original reality is eternal and cannot be replaced by anything. I have no alternative but to accept that it is a second birth. The third truth is death. What can be done except accepting it? Nothing. Thing is to try to carefully distinguish between the truth and the situation. What people often confuse is the truth. A condition is time dependent. It is a causal event that replaces itself with another condition in the long or short term. Therefore, truth does not replace situation, or situation cannot replace truth. Different conditions can be substituted for each other. For example, a land person or a land community may be in a bad situation at one time and at another time it may be a good situation. In the same way, a failure can be a good opportunity for one team and a bad opportunity for another team. No one can avoid or improve this. No matter where we are in the world, it is impossible to make something equal for everyone. Things that are extremely important to one group may be considered harmful to another group. The situation is similar to this. Not everyone can use it at the same time. Not everyone can be hurt. The solution to this is to accept the situation and wait patiently until it is replaced by another situation, even if it is not beneficial for us. But the truth cannot be done like that. It is only possible to accept it. Active not being. It is not necessary to be sensitive. Most of the time, what people say is my job is criticizing other people's work. However, there is not much benefit in increasing criticism. Perhaps the one who is harmed by being sensitive is the sensitive person himself, but it is bound to hinder the person who is criticizing to some extent. This means that there is no benefit in criticism. A person once addicted to narcissism cannot see anything good except that which is reprehensible. He cannot give praise. Instead of giving praise, he likes to criticize. Even if our work is found to be free from mistakes and worthy of what is required by knowledge, an intelligent person will not lose any fault in criticizing the work of a person. To let go of negativity is always to start looking at things positively. With the trained human eye, he can see many good things and is quick to see small things that are not good. For example, if we see a color that does not match the paper on a white 4A paper, we will leave that large paper and focus on that color. It is assumed that the reason for this is not because of the desire for perfection. However, since there is no such thing as perfection, it is necessary to give up the pursuit of stupidity and focus on the good. Once upon a time, things would have improved and they would not have reached the level of excellence they have now. The occasional criticism may not only be due to the pursuit of perfection. Rather, it may come from a spirit of obstructionism. The origin of the idea of envy comes from wanting to do everything by you. Many people will not be happy when they see any good things done by people. The reason is that the situation does not allow them to do that. Therefore, they prefer to belittle and criticize everything done by someone else. There are 2 types of reproaches. the reproaches of sincerity and the reproaches of jealousy. The first fault called honesty is that it arises from wanting to prove the perfection of things as seen from above. The second criticism of jealousy comes from wanting to do everything by you instead of seeing everything done by someone else, and some of it is criticism from not wanting to agree to change at all. Even if the criticism of the first person is not conclusive, he will come up with alternatives, and he will not stop at just criticizing. However, it is not because the owner of the case will not see the proposed improvement idea, but it may be that the improvement can be done after waiting for the time or situation. It is believed that this kind of criticism helps to remember things that have been forgotten by the subject. This kind of criticism is a helpful tool to correct things based on the situation and truth from time to time. Although it is not recommended to enter any kind of criticism, if it is necessary to make criticism, it is possible to provide a constructive criticism in a way that does not disturb the subject by carefully including important additional input. The reason for this is that since the earth was created and people started working and living on it, many things have been improved and it has reached here. One of those who played a positive role for this is the criticism of honesty. If people can't offer criticism with honesty and alternative ideas, it's not necessary to offer criticism alone. To believe cool it is. Regarding belief, religious books and psychology have the same understanding. For example, in religious teachings, he explains that believing is seeing. Psychological counselors say, it is as if we expect something to happen. One day, a famous comedian artist Kebabu Geta realized that when I told him about an event he experienced as a child, it highlighted the secret of faith more than an ordinary experience. The story goes like this. His father was sick, so they sent their son to a remote area where there is a storm in the morning. An artist boy, Kebabu Geta, was walking with the things that he had made. While he was walking, he met his peers who were playing ball. They played a little. He wanted to pass. He started the game by keeping the things near the goal. However, the game is better than letting go. Geta forgot the purpose for which he was sent. Finally, he remembered that it was late, so the alternative was to use another method, which was to draw clean water and pretend it was a storm and offer it to his father. Finally, he did as he thought and the father of the circle believed that the water was a storm, and when they started drinking according to the system, it turned out to be a storm as they expected and he healed them. They found their cure when they used tap water according to their expectations and beliefs. It can be clearly understood from this that not only faith has great power, but also that a person gets things according to what he thinks and expects. It can be written by taking many examples that there is great power in believing. It can be understood that the miracles we see everywhere are not only the result of technology but also the result of faith. Because as a person, when I set out to do something, I first believe that he can do what he wants to do, and then he will do whatever he wants to do. This means that work begins with belief before action. You don't have to be a member of a religious institution to believe and accept something. Because the idea of the embryo of faith exists in the minds of people, not only seem to be different from place to place when it comes to faith. However, the situation is related to internal arrangements. There is no specific place where prayer is heard in any case. However, wherever I pray, it requires strong faith. If what a person says with his mouth and what he wants in his heart are different, he will have a hard time getting what he wants. Because his faith was broken, he did not have strong faith in one place or one issue. The secret to winning and losing is always related to belief and disbelief. Where there is a strong belief in winning, there will always be winning. With such a weak desire to win, it is natural to lose. For example, a person cannot have strong faith when he is in a bad mood, so it is difficult to expect good things when he is in a bad mood. It is believed that the matter of belief is related to the magnetic force, which is strongly related to the inner feeling. It is believed that if we wish good things to happen to people, good things will happen to us. If we desire bad things for people, we attract them to ourselves. Faith is something that can be known, but it is difficult to control easily. Because there are many elements that directly or indirectly affect our faith. One of those elements is our own thoughts. For example, a person cannot always think only good things about himself. As for others, it is easier to imagine something bad that I can create in the future than the good things that many people see. Indirectly, he invites that negative thought to be applied to himself as well. A person who understands the secret of truth protects himself as much as possible from unnecessary thoughts and assumptions. As a result, he can make his own way easier by thinking that what he wishes for himself is also for someone else. On the contrary, it is important to know that belief and envy do not go together. It is important to understand that a person who envies other people is attracting the same desire to himself. There is a secret in believing, which is that the power called faith is not limited to the needs of a group of people. For example, people never stop thinking good things about themselves, but what they experience is not only good things. Because the opposite person thinks more and more negative things about him, it means that the opposite person has got the advantage of repetitive thinking. It is important to understand that we cannot use faith only for our own good wishes. For example, there is something bad called cursing. There is no good in cursing. Cursing is done by other people and no one wants to be cursed. However, even if the cursed person does not want the curse to work on him, it is bound to work on him, because the cursers who are opposite to him strongly believe and send their thoughts of the curse to him. Although it is good to believe, no one can have strong faith alone. It is possible to get rid of such negative belief effects by agreeing with everyone and reducing competition. When people transfer their bad wishes to others through curses, they are bound to share them with themselves. There is no need for a person to cooperate with either the calm or the cursed entities in his conscience, only then can he be free. A person who spreads bad news about someone is likely to be a part of the news. The books of faith conclude that, he who curses will be cursed and he who blesses will be blessed. In other words, when you wish bad things to others, you attract bad things to yourself, and when you wish good things to others, you invite good things to yourself. In any way, he receives not only what we give, but also what we do not give. We take everything as we give it and as it is given to us. Many things are edible, try to balance things as much as possible, and don't stick to one side. Complaint avoidance. If a person has too many complaints and questions in his conscience, he will call himself a problem. As we have already seen, if we attract our interest in other people to ourselves in other direction, if we complain about people, then we are bound to be the victim of our complaint. Just as it is impossible to escape from the influence of faith, it is impossible to escape from the effects of complaints and questions. It is not wise to expect good things in return by blaming ourselves or others for the past. We can't get the good things we want when we carry so many questions and complaints inside us. It is important to start things from scratch with forgiveness by completely removing complaints and questions from your conscience. It is not so important to hold back the grievances and wait for the good. Grievance and resentment are similar in many ways. The problem of holding power is not on the party holding power, but on the party holding power. A person who forgets the value will be the user himself in the first place. Living in debt is like carrying a debt that has no helper and has not yet been paid. It is not known when the unpaid debt will end. It's the same with living. From the month she conceives, a woman lives in hope, longing for the day she will be born. However, a person who has become pregnant cannot know when he will be freed from the pregnancy and start living a free life. Therefore, it is important for everyone to reduce grievances and eliminate grievances. Since they are all bad debts, the solution is to cancel the debt and get free. The man from the problem. Ever since people started living on this earth, people and problems have never been separated. People often hear me talk about truth and true judgment. What is surprising is that there is no such thing as truth or true judgment except these three on this earth. Neither truth nor true judgment has ever existed on earth except in the thoughts of men. It is often said that there will be a judgment day. No one can say when it will be, or there is no such thing as truth or true judgment. As it is said, if there is truth and true judgment, it would not be common to see liars succeeding and people clinging to the truth living in misery. Therefore, both were the desires of people, but there was no time in which he actually lived. It will not exist in the future. It is only a situation that exists and will continue. Therefore, people and their problems live together in harmony. Problems only appear when people are too quick to agree with their problems. When people quickly come to terms with their problems, it is as if the problem itself did not exist. It is not the Creator who makes people equal, but the only and honest natural process called death. The reason for saying this is that people live in lies and die in truth. The Creator has never looked at anyone equally. The Creator only helps people with the data they have. This means that those who have a little data will help with a little, and those with a lot of data will help with a lot. Data is related to the amount of knowledge and wealth. Only death treats people equally and treats them equally. But people are lazy and self-loving, so they strongly hate death. What should have been hated was birth and living from poverty, not a natural process that should be hated and condemned by any kind of death. Because Adugna and Nawai are not only faithful and unchanging, impartial non-renegade, he is only death. If there was no death, when would life be a place for a person? But a person never listens to me saying something good about it. The role of religious institutions is high, so that people's attitude towards death is out of balance. Not only are them, the modern rulers who claim to have learned, also merchants of death. They collect money from people by pretending that they can avoid or delay death, knowing that death is inevitable. On this earth, only eternal death, neither eternal trouble nor eternal comfort was seen. But those bodies do not want to accept this truth. After first deceiving themselves, they chose to deceive others. What should have happened was waiting for time by accepting the truth and agreeing with the situation. But those who deny the truth and accept the situation and leave it to themselves mislead people. In the previous chapter, we have seen that when a person dies, there is not a single clue indicating the existence of water or fire, other than to return to what he was before he was created. However, religious teachers who lied and deceived people on earth tried to entice them by saying, there is another kingdom after death. Quote, long ago, when man was created, there was no such thing as poor or rich. The wise and the ignorant are the same. But man created the poor, the rich, the wise and the ignorant in his own time. People want to ruin even their own death, but they can't. When a person lives on earth, he will die at the appointed time. Still, people don't really want to understand false life and true death. This is because they cannot easily forget what has been preached by religious teachers for centuries. It is hard for them to let go of what they have heard before, whether it is true or false, so they want to consider themselves as loyal listeners. For them, a person who promotes progressive ideas is quickly condemned, and sometimes they try to teach by pretending that the Creator likes everything that belongs to them and fights what is not theirs. The way they follow is not given to them by nature, but it is the way they have developed due to their practice. They make the topic of their sermons that anyone who does not accept what they have gained because of their practice is hated by them. There is one thing that equalizes the loved and the hated, and that is death. But they teach that a dead person will rise again, but since the creation of the earth and the sky, a person is born, a person lives, a person dies. Therefore, the true history of human beings starts from D to Mo. We have already read about M and Mo in Three Truths. The three truths are the first creator, the second birth, and the third death. There is no other truth except these. They are all the conditions that we see and hear. If the beginning of human beings is birth, the end is death. When a person dies, after the soul and the flesh are separated, the flesh is buried and no one has yet seen where the soul goes. I think it will go back to where it was. If there is a question about where he was, it is not known where he was before the birth of the first man. Therefore, it means that when a person dies, he returns from being seen to being invisible. This is true for all human beings. That is why it is said that one of the three truths is death. Man thinks that he has improved his life, he puts more hardships and challenges on himself. He worries about living a better life when the challenges are revealed. Then he worries about where he will go when he dies.